Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, it's our Wisdom of the Sages podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and bestie, Kaustubha Das. And this is your daily yoga podcast for people studying yoga and just want to go deeper into the sacred literature of yoga. Yoga just gets updated. And then, we have hot yoga, acro yoga, partner yoga, goat yoga, hot goat yoga. That's the newest one, hot goat yoga. They only bring in hot goats. And then the whole thing about aerial goat yoga, that's ridiculous. But I'm going to have
that's going too far.
Now we're taking in the next. So anyway, we are trying to bring yoga back to where its origin is from, which is sacred literature. Really sort of like the seed being Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and it culminates in this one book, an epic, 18,000 Sanskrit verses called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it talks about heavy, heavy truth as well as fantastic stories of gods and goddesses. If you're listening to us in the podcast, we also have a live Zoom group, which if you want to join us, there is about, how many people? I got 64 people this morning from around the globe who join us every morning like a good habit. So if you want to join us, you can see everybody's faces. They're all popping around, winking at each other right now, drinking a cup of tea with their loved ones, driving around, at work, playing hooky from work, whatever they're doing, whispering, tiptoeing around the house. They're all in a different place. But all you have to do is email Mara, our executive producer, and her email is wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And you can be part of the gang. Also, any questions you have, you can write us there. And I want to start this whole show with a question today. Is that okay, Kaustubha?
Yeah, sure.
I got this good question. Like, how do you know when you are criticizing?
When you're criticizing? Is that what you said?
How do you know when you're criticizing? Yeah, how do you know when you're criticizing? Sorry if I got a choppy mic today. It's all based on internet connection, and I live in the sticks. Every time a storm comes, there goes my internet, and we're in the midst of an ice storm right now. So how do you know when you're criticizing and when you're calling somebody out for doing some type of nonsense? Like, do I just keep a plug in my mouth? A cork in my mouth and not say anything? What if I see somebody beating up a child or beating up an old lady? Do I not say anything because I don't want to criticize? And because you hear this on a regular basis, we don't criticize people on their spiritual path. We don't criticize. You'll hear that again and again in ashrams. You do not criticize other devotees. You do not criticize. The biggest offense is to criticize the guru. But what about social justice? What about doing what's right? And it's a very, very, it's a slippery slope. But because in the yoga practice, our real focus of change is on ourselves. A real focus of change is on ourselves. And I have a tendency to find that desire or that spirit to want change. I project it outwards, how the government can change, how the foreign policy can change, how the weather can change, how the economy can change, how my spouse could change, how my kids should change. This is an ongoing cycle in my mind, how I want everything to change, but I don't want to change. That's a problem. It's a problem because people become incredibly frustrated. If you want to add some good frustration to your life, I highly recommend trying to change things you can't change. Because a lot of things I want to change, I can't change anyway. But if I actually want to change the world, the yoga focus, and you got to hear this, I don't care if you've been around bhakti circles for 35 years, 40 years, if we want to change, we got to work on ourselves. We got to dig deep into what we are and our shortcomings. That being said, It's okay to discern. It's okay to say, this is wrong. I don't agree with what is going on here. This is nonsense. I'm going to blow the whistle on this, or I'm going to call bullshit on this. But you got to be careful. Suppose Tom, I'm sorry, you're staring right at my face, Tom. I got to call you out. Okay. Suppose Tom's doing something stupid. And suppose Tom's my teacher and he's doing something stupid. My mood should be, Tom has been teaching me for so long. But now he's doing something completely inappropriate. So now this is going to happen. You're going to get to this position where, like, yes, I agree. I shouldn't criticize. It's not a good thing. Do you mind if I keep going with this, Kaustubha? I can't hear you. Did you mute yourself?
I did. I'm sorry. I was coughing. Keep going. I said, keep going.
That's a good habit. He mutes himself when he coughs. So Tom is doing something nefarious, perhaps. Hey, by the way, this happens in the yoga community all the time, even in America. You have this teacher, the teacher's giving you so much, then all of a sudden he's caught doing something nefarious. My initial justice reaction is, this guy's full of shit. What a criminal. I can't believe he was in this role of a teacher. How dare he, right? And you'll hear this is two different sides you'll hear. Is this guy's completely bogus, throw him out, let's tar and feather him. Or the other side is just forgive, just let it go. Big deal. Who are we to judge? These are two sides of the same coin. You have to discern, but you don't condemn. You have to discern. It's important to discern. We're not asking people, yoga culture, sacred literature is not asking people to throw away all discernment. We're asking people to throw away all condemnation. Condemnation means you are broken and you will never be healed, period. That's condemnation. Whereas discernment is, what you're doing is wrong. I no longer accept you as a teacher. Good luck. You might have to go to prison. You might have to be counseled outside our community. Or you might have to just correct a bad habit. But I appreciate all you've done for me. It's not like to say this person is 100% sick through and through. I'm really reusing you as Tom's just I'm so sorry. I mean, who wants to be condemned for something we did? We've done in our past. I want to be lifted out of that. It's another thing if the person constantly will not change their habits. Then they have to be cut off. And we have to measure this up with all the people in our lives, with all people and with all relationships with teachers. But this idea of now I want to just share this with you. Once you get into this thing, and we teach this all the time, it's one of our first of our 6 pillars. I do not criticize. When you start doing that, I don't criticize people, your life radically changes because we start to notice how much I criticize people on a regular basis. It's just flowing out of my mouth. And then I catch it and control it and realize, oh my God, I am one massive criticism. How problematic is that? And I'm projecting all my issues. And I tell you, when I criticize other people, it's a smoke screen for my own issues. I don't have to deal with my own issues. And you see this happen a lot with the social justice movement. It's you just keep on going, driving crazy, finding fault with everybody else out there. Guess what? It's going to come full circle back to you. Because no one's a clean slate in this world. We can always find one thing you said out of context, blow that up on the screen, and show this is your problem. Be careful reaching out and lashing out at everybody else's shortcomings. Don't throw away that discernment. Keep it, but be careful. Because the next stage you'll get when you realize the joy of no criticism is you're going to be put in a situation where you have to discern. And this is the next slippery stage. When you're left to discern with a teacher, with a friend, with whatever, maybe a long-term relationship, how do you handle this? can I call something out without being indulgent in criticism? There's an indulgence, almost like a type of pleasure you get from finding somebody do something wrong and calling them out on it. You got to be careful. To the degree that you enjoy that, that's Maya. That's when you stepped over the line, and now you're the problem. Now you're the problem. And Maya or illusion sets us up for this on a regular basis, and it's something I'm urging. And I tell you, I urge people who've been practicing bhakti for years to notice this, because we're going to hit a very low ceiling of our spiritual advancement. It's a slippery slope to call out an issue but not enjoy and indulge in criticism. It's the number one offense that ruins people's spiritual life. It's not saying being a blind follower. It's not saying putting blinders on, but careful about indulgence. Kaustubha, please comment. Please give me a purport on my long-winded intro.
I enjoyed your long-winded intro.
Thank you, Prabhu.
At least I'm not going to criticize it. No, I thought it was good. I liked it. The original question was, how do we know when we're criticizing someone? I assume meaning like doing something that's not progressive,
playfully finding fault, or sort of like in a justice way, try to find fault with something
compared to like a sincere attempt to improve things.
Sure,
I guess. And of course, that's a judgment call. So it's not like you or I or anyone else is going to be able to give some magic formula that can be applied in every situation. So what we can talk about is principles, right? And how we apply the principles. So as you're speaking, you hit on a couple principles. One of them is that there's a principle in spiritual life. If we want to practice yoga, if we want to practice bhakti yoga, then getting right down to the fundamental of it. It's about uncovering our true nature. And our true nature is understood to be blissful or happy. So the idea that happiness is something that's within me, that's something that I have to, in the beginning, take with some faith. I can analyze it, I can question it, and hold that faith. And then I have to put that faith to the test and practice that by not searching for happiness through external things, particularly through darker things, or through, in other words, you use the word indulgent. And it's a fact that we are all prone to try to find happiness because it makes us feel better about ourselves when we drag someone else down. And there can even be a sense of triumph, or a sense of glee, or whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's a type of pleasure.
Like
gossip is a type of pleasure.
Right. So we need to become convinced. We need to cultivate the conviction there's no happiness there. That whatever I taste there, in the end, is bitter. I don't need it. I don't want it. That's not where I'm going to find happiness. Let me completely free myself of that ridiculous, misconception. So then if I have that conviction very strong, then I can begin to kind of do a little audit in my own mind of what am I really doing here? And that brings us to the next principle, honesty with the self, right? Honesty with oneself. We're not going to be able to practice spirituality until we're thoroughly honest with ourselves. We may have an egoistic conception of who we are, or who we want to project, how we want to project who we are. Yeah. And that may, the idea of the rectifier or the heroic, corrector of wrongs, righter of wrongs, might play into that. We really have to be honest. What am I doing here? Am I trying to help the situation, or am I trying to get off on exposing someone?
Being the big exposer, being the Ralph Nader of my little community.
Yeah. And what happens is, as I believe, as we mature in our spiritual practice, it becomes clearer to us that when I indulge, I rob myself of that connection of the true happiness which lies in the heart. I am throwing that away. I'm throwing away the gold, in order for the iron, right? I'm
like that. Throw away the gold and for the iron.
Yeah. In other words, yeah, I'm going for, or you were saying fool's gold, right?
Fool's gold.
Yeah, fool's gold. I'm going for the fool's gold, the happiness through criticizing others, dragging others down, making me feel superior,
Good luck with that.
and disqualifying myself from actually experiencing true spiritual happiness. That true spiritual happiness has to become my goal, has to become my focus, and I have to be willing to do whatever I need to get it. And that involves real honesty with the self. So these are principles, now how that every individual is going to have to apply these principles in their own life, and, try to understand when I am indulging and when I'm actually trying to help. Now, all of that being said, within the realm of bhakti yoga, and this is a great topic, and it's something that you and I think maybe we discussed back before we came Wisdom of the Sages and we were Super Soul Sacred Sangha.
It's something we
talk
continuously work on is like dissecting this in my own speech, in my own thoughts.
What I was going to bring up was the idea that I believe a lot of people say in the West that are new to bhakti or are less familiar with the tradition and the literature. They may be unaware that there's like a whole system of etiquette within the practice of bhakti yoga.
Sure.
And part of that etiquette has to do with there are this is a little bit foreign or a little bit maybe not so tasteful to the Western mind, the way that our minds have been shaped, but the idea of in a sense of hierarchy and how we deal with people. That for instance,
we don't like hierarchy.
We don't like hierarchy. But it's all over the yoga practice, So like you and I, we were initiated into this lineage by people who were disciples of their guru. So there's 3 generations, right? There's Srila Prabhupada, then there are his disciples, and we're disciples of his disciples. We're the grand disciples.
Yeah.
So if part of that, what we would call Vaishnava etiquette, the etiquette of the Vaishnavas or the Bhakti Yogis, is that I'm not going to openly, publicly, even one-on-one with that person, openly criticize them. Sure. If I see that they're doing something wrong, doesn't mean that I can't do anything about it, but it means that I'm going to deal with it with some discretion, how I go about it. And
there's a great saying, fools rush in.
Fools rush in where angels fear to tread.
Fools rush in.
Yeah. Do you remember the fact that you just said that?
A Bow Wow song.
No, it wasn't about what. No, I remember my guru saying to you, Raghunath, you should write a song, Fools Rush In Where Angels Fear to Tread. Do you remember that?
Was he criticizing me?
No, he was encouraging you. He's like, Raghunath, you should write a song called...
I do remember that.
And then he said this. He said, Raghunath, you should write a song called Fools Rush In Where Angels Fear to Tread. And then you should rhyme it with something like dead or bullet in the head.
By the way, when we say we don't criticize, we let that go, that we let that little rule go when we're approaching our teachers. We want our teachers, hey, critique me. Also, this word criticize is a loaded word. It's sort of dissect me, dissect me, skillfully cut away my ego. We throw ourselves in front at the feet of our teachers, please. With people like your guru, and we miss him dearly. He's no longer on the planet, but he was like a double-barrel shotgun for correcting us. Yeah. Boom, and shoot us. But we put ourselves in that position for correction. That's what the young monk does. We want to be corrected. We've got some stinking thinking going on. Our brains are not calibrated correctly. Our actions are not calibrated. And we learn a deep type of humility from tripping and falling on again and again. We learn how to walk. We cut our teeth in this bhakti yoga process. Someone like Raghunath Swami, who's sort of, he's our director, our leader, our inspiration right now. He doesn't really criticize like that or critique or you have to petition him. And I sort of follow that lead with most of my students. I don't go out. Person really has to come to me and say, please, please, I encourage you to correct me.
Yeah.
The universe, I find, corrects us anyway. What do you think about that? I feel like we get corrected, but
yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be a question of our honesty, but there is this, beyond that, there's this etiquette about how I deal with things. And for instance, if I were to look back at my 30-something years of bhakti practice, I've held different convictions over the years, and they've
Right.
shifted.
Yeah.
So the way that I would judge a person, there are judgments that I held about people long ago that I now see in a very different way. And I could have been mouthing off and trying to rectify everything. And now I look back and I say, I understand now why that person behaved the way that they did.
Sure.
Yeah. Whereas I would have been critical of it in the past, I kind of get it now. And therefore, the idea that I'm not going to criticize someone who's older than me or who's senior to me, there's a wisdom in that. Let me talk to someone else that's their peer, bring my thoughts to them.
That is a good point. It doesn't mean everybody in the hierarchy is doing the correct things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, I just don't want to break. See, there is a current of mercy that comes down. And for me to dam up that current with my great intelligence of saving the world, I got to be careful of that. So now Kaustubha is talking specifically in bhakti circles, appropriate etiquette. If I see my teacher acting in an inappropriate way, instead of calling out my teacher, I will go to somebody who's also on their level, senior to me, and we'll say, here's what my teacher's doing. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's completely off. Can you
either help me understand it,
or
you help deal with it?
Maybe maybe my teacher's going through some type of problems. Maybe they're not free from all problems and they're going through something. Can you help me? And so that's an appropriate way to deal with those things. Anyway, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because there is an etiquette within bhakti. And even those who are critiquing us, and we're going to get put in positions to critique. You can copy this one down, Lindsay, too. I don't give unsolicited advice. I don't give it. You know what? If you want to ruin friends and make enemies, that could be my new book. How to ruin friends and make enemies. Give people unsolicited advice on a regular basis. No one wants to hear from them. Now, that's different. If somebody signs up for a teacher training, they're signing up for that. They're signing up for some type of advice, some type of direction, etc. But for the most part, I don't give unsolicited advice. And I think it's one thing that drives people crazy about the relationships with their parents, with their spouse. Often we feel like, well, I have the right to give. This is my kid. I can give them unsolicited. We got even with my own children, I give them some type of direction. But to the degree as the kid gets older, you keep giving that unsolicited advice. It translates to, you don't trust me. You're a nag. What do you know about me anyway? It doesn't bring you closer. Even in the name of, I want to get closer to this kid, it pushes them away from you.
A lot of things in life, as we get older, hopefully we realize. But the direct approach is not always the most effective. Trying to grab a fish, if you're going to catch it, you can't squeeze too hard. It's too slippery.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, raising children. This is something as a parent that you've experienced, right? And I believe it was Chanyaka Pandit who described how you should raise kids and how you have to be strict at these ages. And then at a certain age, you let go. And if you're going to have a positive influence in their life, it's going to come from them approaching you now, rather than you trying to impose it on them. And that's called wisdom, being able to recognize that, not recognizing where you started. What can I change and what can I not change?
Hey, Kaustubha, Wenke G, our beloved Wenke G from Austria, Vienna. I'm going to Vienna twice this year. I'm excited for it, for 2 festivals. Hopefully I'll see Wenke G and Alexia, our 2 Zoomers here. But anyway, she asked the question, well, yesterday I also heard, so we're not allowed to have an opinion on anything if I can't criticize. How would you answer that?
You
Want me to be opinionless? What kind of crazy spiritual thing are you into?
We can't help but have an opinion. We should be humble enough. I mean, let's just face it. Is everybody's opinion right? Certainly not. Does that mean that our opinion is always right? Which generally we think certainly yes. Right? But part of the whole spiritual path is to understand how our mind has been programmed in different ways. So it's a subtle thing, but spiritual practice is going to be a subtle thing. That how can I move through this world with proper convictions? How can I try to rectify things in this world that are wrong? And at the same time, always understand in the back of my mind that in one sense, this is all an illusion. There's a certain gentle balance.
I know. In one sense, this is all an illusion. You're trying to figure out material problems with material answers. Yeah. You're trying to figure out the dream in the dream.
Yeah. And different Bhakti yogis will approach it differently. Some will use trying to change this world as their own internal practice. And some will more or less withdraw, in a sense, their practice has to do more with withdrawal from the illusion. And both are valid paths. Again, this isn't an easy question, but if I were going to get back to the original question and sum it up, I would say you got to be honest with yourself. If you're incapable of being honest with yourself, you're never going to be able to solve this question. So we really have to practice being honest with ourselves. And for a lot of people, in one sense, for all of us, that can be a challenge. And for some people, it's an insurmountable challenge to truly be honest with themselves.
Sure.
And say, why am I bringing this up? What is my real motive here? Even if there's truth in it, why am I handling it the way that I'm handling it? I had this experience recently where anyway, in my opinion, one person was really kind of like laying the kind of, what do you call passive aggressive kind of stuff on me,
Yep.
Like they're really talking down to me and really criticizing me and
fools. Who would criticize Kaustubha? Yeah, that's like a big offense.
And there was this temptation to me. This is where I'm seeing where my growth really has to take place, because my nature is, what? I'm just going to pick apart everything you just said and just expose how ridiculous what you just said and how everything you said about me is really about you. So I felt like I have that option.
And you're back in the world of pettiness, right?
Yeah.
You're back
right.
In the
world that's the point. Even if I'm entirely right, is this how I'm going to absorb my mind? Is this how I'm going to engage in my life? Is this how, or will by indulging in this, will I be robbing myself of that steady mindedness that is the requirement for yoga and for experiencing the true happiness of the self? So, I was trying to practice, okay, you know what? Just let it be, just let it be. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And then, I'm trying to learn that from the great souls, My temptation is to attack,
Sure.
Intellectually attack.
Now this brings us to this next point, which I think is important to also bring up. And as we get into our spiritual path and we're trying not to criticize, not to, we're trying to follow all these principles of like keeping it in, holding it in, being the best person I can, becoming tolerant, not criticizing people, not holding offenses with people. Once you feel like this is good, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, I'm not going to just opt in for, people do this with politics. I'm going to opt into this party and everything they believe, I'm going to believe. Or this party, everything they believe, I'm going to believe, or everything they believe, I hate. We have to be you have to be independent thinkers in spiritual life. You can't just opt into a party line. Independent thinking. After you've really contained that, okay, that's me. And then there's other people I don't agree with, I'm going to tolerate them. I accept. So once I get to this point and I feel good in that container, there's going to be people that are going to take you down. They're going to go after you. They're going to hold you out. It doesn't matter. You can be like St. Francis of Assisi. They're going after you. They're going to try to tar and feather you. At that point, What other people think of me is none of my business. I want to, like Kaustubha said, I want to get petty. They want to get petty with me. I'll go right there with them. I got to let go of that in myself. And I have to accept that people aren't going to like me. People are going to call me out. I'm okay. See, I'm okay with this personally. I
admire your courage and going back to when you're a teenager, like how you were willing to say what you had to say and endure so much criticism and so much unjustified kind of criticism.
I mean, and I was sort of used to it. It took it's a type of karma that I have, like being outspoken, and I'm sure a lot was mixed with my own ego. But I know when we became vegetarians, we already had a huge following of people that didn't drink and didn't smoke. And then we said, no, you got to be vegetarian if you want to be straight edge. I took so much heat for that. Paramananda Prabhu did. We took so much, we had meat thrown at us on stage by our fans that were just like, screw you guys. So it's sort of like, whenever you want to actually make a statement in this world, and I think in Bhakti, a lot of our statements are no statements. We're just like working on ourselves. That's a statement, and that will drive some people crazy. Whenever you make, Tom's like, yes. Whenever you want to make that statement, get ready for the crucifixion. Okay? Because they're coming after you. And you know what? That's okay. You got to be ready for that. You got to be ready for that. And we have to be good with that. You can do everything right, and there's going to be a whole demographic of people that want to hang you. Good morning. Anyway, it's a good way to start our day. What do you think about this, all this stuff?
I think it's great. And it's a big question. I think we just touched on it. I don't think we dealt with it thoroughly. We can bring these things up in further talks and all that, but maybe we got started on it.
Man, I got my night button on. Why is my phone still dinging? Does your phone ding if you put your night button on? I thought it was.
I don't even know what a night button is.
You don't know what a night button? That one that looks like a moon?
Oh, okay.
That's your night button.
But you know what's nice, Raghu, is the verses that we're going to read today.
Yeah.
They deal with showing the mood of that junior to the seniors in the practice of bhakti yoga in a beautiful way.
Yeah. You know what? I like to be a junior. I like to be a junior. I like to surround myself with people who are elder and wiser, and I like to shut up and listen. And sometimes they're not elder.
Yeah.
Like when I'm with Leela in India, she's 15 years younger than me. And, but I have a very big mouth. A lot of you can agree, understand that and know me personally. But when I get around Leela, I just shut up. I just shut up and let her talk.
Well, she's got the kind of personal charisma that can even compete in your circle.
We got to get her back on the show too.
We do.
But you want people like that sort of you just shut up and listen to. I want people like that in my life. I get exhausted always being like the teacher and the leader. People do this also, especially if you're a teacher, especially if you're a leader. You need to spend time in the year being the student. You need to spend time during the year being the student, because it's really easy to get caught up in your greatness. Because sometimes people have this karma to lead and a karma to teach. It's their karma. They're born teachers, born leaders. Unless they're holding on to, in yoga culture, we'll say, to the feet of their teachers. It's almost like if they're trying to save a life, they have to be holding the boat, so to speak, or holding the rope, the life rope. Then they can reach out and save other people. If they're just floating in the water on their own charisma, be careful, because they're going to go down. We can only take so much, right? We can only take so many people saying, you're the best, you're the coolest, you're great, you're good looking, you're wonderful, you're deep. You know what I mean? After a while, our own self gets corrupt, because we're not free from these kama, krodha, lobha, all these pollutants of the atma.
True.
About that?
I agree.
Pollutants of the atma. Make that a t-shirt.
Well, really pollutants of the mind, right? Because the atma doesn't get polluted. Although sometimes the mind is called the atma too.
Yeah. Okay. Silas, stop sending photos to me, man. My phone's dinging out of control here. Oh, that button. Okay. Do you ever feel like your iPhone is so powerful you don't even know? I'm only using like 2%. Like they say, you only like 2% of your brain. I'm only using like 2% of my iPhone. I'm using mail and text messages and WhatsApp, and that's about it. And the Telegram group. I hate apps. I'm just freaking over apps. I use like 4 of them, and I've got thousands on this phone. Yeah. Okay. Let's start with our invocation. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshvabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become completely eradicated in loving devotional service to the Transcendental Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Verse 23. Just want to say, if some of you are sitting there in a bitter way saying, man, we're 40 minutes in, we're not even talking about the Bhagavatam. Guess what? All this stuff is the Bhagavatam. All this stuff is the Bhagavatam, because unless you can deal with discernment instead of criticism, you are not going to be able to understand the Bhagavatam. This is important stuff. This is what purports are made out of. All this stuff, right?
Sure.
You can't understand. Otherwise, you're just reading fantastic stories. Sorry, I can charge my phone here. You're just reading fantastic stories. You really need to, and this is what the commentators, and Kaustubha and me are playing this role of commentators, forgive us, but that's our job, is to sort of update it. That's what the teachers of the Bhagavatam do. We update it for our community in a way that's sort of relevant. So if it's relevant for you, yeah, then we're doing our job. Okay. Oh, Muni. Muni means a great thinker.
So this is Narada speaking to Vyas now.
Narada, the guru, is speaking to Vyas, the one who compiled all Vedic texts, which were originally audible.
Oral.
Audible
as well.
They were audible. They're audibly oral. They're orable. Oh, Muni, in the last millennium, I was born. Oh, so now Narada is telling his backstory.
This is past life regression.
This is
It's all real.
Oh, Oh, Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant, the son of a maid, engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in the personal service. So, in tropical weathers, there's a monsoon season. Monsoon means massive rain, like coming down like columns of rain, and then it stops and it's nice. And then it pours again in the afternoon. And so in the old days, you didn't travel during those times. The roads were too muddy. And so holy people generally holy people were always traveling. The mendicants were always traveling around. They didn't like to get comfortable. They lived under trees. They lived in the forest. So during the rainy season, they would park it somewhere. And so Narada said that in his last life, he was a child, the son of just a simple maidservant who's taking care of these great mendicants. Nowadays, if a person's a mendicant, meaning they have no home and they wander around, we call them transients. So there's a difference now. And it's interesting because I've oftentimes thought, I would like to sort of be homeless. got to be careful what you wish for, but it's sort of like the idea of, can you be homeless and be sattvic? This is what the Brahmins were. They were sattvic, but homeless. They were sattvic, like they were clean. They were learned. They rose early. They controlled their diet. They controlled their tongue. They controlled their sexual habits. They lived with principles, but they were attached to nothing. It's different than just like, I'm going to live under this encampment under a bridge because luck has, I'm unfortunate, or I've lost my job, or I'm addicted to alcohol. It's a different type, or mental illness or something like that, or the government's not taking care of me. It's actually, they were voluntarily homeless. Why? Because they realized life is short and I don't want to become attached to anything in this world. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it was a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle some people still live.
Thank you, dear.
But it can benefit the individual, and it's great to have some people in society who are totally detached from everything that can speak from that angle.
Yeah. When you meet a person who's not attached to anything, they can give you some good advice.
Yeah.
Because they've got nothing to lose. That's why in these traditional cultures, the feudal system that you study in social studies in 8th grade, it's all based on the Vedic culture. You have these classes of varnas. Varna, it's called in Sanskrit, a varna, where you have a priestly class. Those were the mendicants. They were supposed to be detached, and that's where the feudal system got corrupted. In Europe was when the religious interpreters of the Bible, of the Old Testament, when they became corrupt, then there's no longer a feudal system. They can't guide. When you're detached, you can actually give people good advice. If you're not, just like, for example, if I have a doctor that's dependent on a particular salary, because a lot of times in the West, people become doctors and lawyers. They become encouraged sometimes by their parents. Do these things because they'll have an economic payoff. That's a problem in a position like a doctor where you need care. And a person has to give, I'm not saying this for all doctors, but that's the concept of a Hippocratic oath. You take an oath to Hippocrates. Isn't that cool? They take an oath to Hippocrates that they will lead fairly. Someone should look up the Hippocratic oath, please, on Wiki. I want to read the Hippocratic oath. I don't want a doctor. I want a doctor to actually tell me if I absolutely need it out, just because he's got to make payments on his second house. I want what I need out. So I want a doctor. And this is these traditional cultures. Doctors were paid donations. You give a donation according to your means. What a smart way. Judges, lawyers were paid. Yoga teachers. Hippocratic oath. No, you got to pull out the whole oath. See if we can find the actual oath. Wait a second. Is an oath of ethics historically taken by physicians. It's one of the most widely known Greek medical texts. In its original form, it requires a new physician to swear by a number of healing gods to uphold specific ethical standards. The oath is the earliest expression of medical ethics in the Western world, establishing several principles of medical ethics which remain of paramount significance today. This includes the principles of medical confidentiality and non-maleficence.
Do no harm.
Do no harm. As the seminal articulation of certain principles that continue to guide and inform medical practice, the ancient text is more than historic and symbolic value. Swearing a modified form of the oath remains a rite of passage for medical graduates in many countries. So this was inherent in the Vedic system. There was ethics of the doctor. So anyway, we're speaking of this because, why am I talking about this? We're talking about
because these mendicants would wander, and because they were detached, they could speak the truth.
Yes. Okay, we made it through one text today. It's all important stuff. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. So here he is, a little boy working with his mother, taking care of these mendicants. And the senior spiritualists blessed him with their causeless mercy. Imagine you're an important person, you're doing some important work, and there's a little kid saying, "Hey, can I get you a glass of water? Here, let me get that for you." They give blessings. It's so screwed up because we don't have a culture. Oftentimes, we don't have a culture where we even respect our parents. Either because I'm screwed up and I don't respect anybody except myself, or my parents were less than worthy characters, or did some crazy things,
or a little of both,
or a little bit of both. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports. It says sports. I wonder what the translation of that is.
I mean, when I hear that, I think it's a broader term than just like athletics, but like sporting.
I think so too. I think so too. Do you have your book in front of you? Maybe read that.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Let's see.
Okay. I was self-controlled, had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty, and I did not speak more than required.
So there's two words here. It's adrita kridanake.
Adrita kridanake, without being accustomed to sporting habits. Yeah. So basically, the kid wasn't a frivolous.
There you go.
Most kids are kids. They just, part of their growing is, it's when they bring this thing from their previous life where you meet kids like this, they're just really focused. They're really focused. And it's a rare thing. It's not that sports are evil, but they can, and we know this, come on. We know sports can be a massive distraction. Like, I'm just cheering for, whatever, the Pittsburgh Penguins. You know what I mean? Whatever, I don't even know. Yeah. Tom lives from Pittsburgh, by the way. It can be a distraction. Anyway.
But I think what this verse is saying, he's saying I was a good
little boy. I was a good little boy.
He had a beautiful nature. His mood was, let me help, let me serve. And it says, although they were impartial by nature, they're ready to share what they have with anyone, but they could see this boy's particularly receptive to it by his qualities. So let us share all that we can with him.
It's not even the imparting of oral knowledge, although it is that also.
Right.
It's actually getting, what's the word?
We throw the word blessings around a lot now.
The word blessings almost sounds so Christian. Oh, blessed you, blessed.
Or within the yoga world, it's just thrown around.
Blessings to you. You walk around and sound like we're right on the pages of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But we want the favor. Just like there's people that you favor, like, oh, here comes this person who walks in the door. I love this guy. This guy's a great guy. We want the favor of their teachers. And by their well-wishing upon us, because they're connected, you get the blessings of Bhagavan. That's the theory, at least, behind it. By getting the blessings of Guru, you're getting the blessings of Bhagavan.
Yeah.
Or the Supreme, or divinity. And that's why there's this constant, appreciation for the Guru. An appreciation for the Guru. All right.
So now what became of that? How did that manifest in his life? Next verse.
I just want to pop out into the purport for a second. Bhakti Vedantas see that the people in general are wasting their time in false, sensuous things. The business is to get the ignorant mass of people to reestablish their lost relationship with the personality of Godhead. By such an endeavor, even the most forgotten soul is roused up to the sense of spiritual life, and thus being initiated by the Bhakti Vedantas, the people in general gradually progress on the path of transcendental realization. It's all true. It's happening. Okay. Next verse. This is verse 1525. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food. Now, this sounds weird.
It does.
Because it reminds me of when I worked in the Hilton, at the Hilton, at the Hilton as a dishwasher. Tom knows where this is going. Did you actually eat? I ate the food off the plates of the people. I was like, oh man, they're going to throw out that cheesecake. I'm going to eat that. It's embarrassing. I was 16 years old. Give me a break. You know what? I think this is worth a discussion, the remnants of food. Because in American culture, this sounds insane. You're going to eat the remnants of somebody's food. You're going to eat somebody's leftovers who you don't even know. But it's considered an incredibly holy thing to eat the remnants of the great soul's food. Matter of fact, it's considered one of the top 3 things. And if you think eating the remnants of the food is crazy, when do you hear the 2 other ones? We're going to save that for tomorrow. That's okay. our opening gambit for tomorrow. Eating the remnants of the food of great souls. Let me just finish the verse so we can wind this down. Okay. Once only by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by doing so, all my sins were at once eradicated.
Bad karma.
All their bad karma was changed by eating the remnants of the food of the great souls. I burp twice a show. Twice a show I burp. Thus being engaged, probably the first time that's ever been said during a Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart. And at that time, the very nature of the Transcendentalist became attractive to me.
That's the blessing.
That's the blessing.
Right.
What's the biggest blessing? That I'll have a great successful family. I'll become great in my career. I'll have a great retirement plan. That's not the blessing. The blessing is, Kaustubha.
Well, what becomes attractive to one? That my mind turns away from trying to find happiness through external things and becomes redirected. Somehow within me, there's a, what did it say here? That something arose. I think in the commentary that we just read, it was aroused, right?
It was aroused.
Thus
being engaged, I became purified in heart. And at that time, the very nature of the Transcendentalist became attractive to me.
I want to be like that.
I want to be like that. And we have a lot of that. We have that in our life. We see people, they're heroes. Sometimes they're movie stars or sports celebrities or business. People have this sharp business acumen. And we're thinking, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the nature of the Transcendentalists became attractive to him.
That's what became attractive. And that will change your whole life. Pure devotion is such here, listen to the commentary. Pure devotion is as much infectious in a good sense as infectious diseases. A pandemic, so to speak. A transcendental pandemic. A pure devotee is cleared from all kinds of sins or bad karma. The personality of Godhead, purity, is the purest entity. And unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord.
Raghu, we just ran out of time and your music isn't queued up.
Are you kidding? I'm with you.
All right.
You think Tom is here for nothing here?
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, if you're listening to our podcast and you got any questions or you want to join our live group, just email us. wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. If you like this show and you think it's a good thing, go to your podcast and write us a 5-star review and give us a little comment. It means a lot to us. It helps our rankings. Thanks, everybody. It helps
other people find it.
Helps other people find it, too. And those who are listening on Zoom, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Let's all do a little clap and dance right now. Good way to start your morning, clapping and dancing, isn't it? I find it very, very good. Out of all the things this Bhakti-yoga culture has, is we believe God dances and claps a lot. We believe when he walks, he dances, and when he talks, he sings. Look at Bhakti Louis. He is in full bliss up there next to Aditi, next to Aravind. We got people all around the world joining us today.
I think Louis picked that up in Studio 54 back in the day.
Yeah, well, Bhakti Louis is old school. All the people join us late. Welcome, Catherine. Welcome.
I want to add this before we turn off.
Okay, go, Bhakti Louis.
that the guest that you invited, the beautiful Mataji from India, she said
Yes.
this, and it resonates with me every day. We do not want to be bliss. We want to taste bliss.
We do not want to be bliss.
Nice.
We want to taste bliss.
That's
Okay, we got to
Said
get
that
lit.
Velocity.
day, and it's just been resonating with me every day. Every day, it just rings in my head, man.
All right. Dr. Louis said it.
I love you guys, man. Thank you
Love
so
you,
much
Louis.
for bringing this.
Love you, Louis. Eric Noble, good to see you. Silas, no offense taken, sending me those beautiful pictures. Mike Conway, good to see you. Cassie Rose. Jamuna Jaya, we love you. Sachi Devi, my darling, is upstairs listening. Dana K, Sri Rupa Ji, Surya Ji, Jose, Papa Tony, Christian Drew. If I forgot you, I didn't forget you. Forgive me. It's just like a bad eyesight. I'm not used to Zoom. And I'll see you tomorrow. Tom, welcome back to the show. Are you here tomorrow?
No.
He's in Pittsburgh. Okay, if you hear the movie, Go, Don't Go. That's Tom. Let's check it out. Thank you, everybody. Haribo.
Haribo.